Hello and welcome everybody to this artist interview. I am Dominga, and this is the day where we are doing a very special interview. It's our first interview of the series, and we have as a guest the amazing, the marvelous, my goddess friend, singer, actress, multi-talented Carmen Borla. A big applause for Carmen Borla, please.
Thank you, Romy, so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be the first, your first.
Oh my God. Amiga, thanks for being here. I'm so excited. As I was telling you before, to welcome you to this interview. We're gonna get a little bit into your story, learn the deeps and the highs, the lows of being an artist, what it means to be an artist, and the tools we have to have in our mental health bucket. So, could you please start by giving us a little story about where you come from, where you are till where you are now?
Okay. Tell me if I'm getting off track because I tend to like go like a tree
Yeah.
and
Shall I
yeah.
give you like how many minutes do you need?
No, you just go like Carmen, let's go back to what you're supposed to talk about.
Okay, no
Um,
worries.
but I am Carmen Borla. I was born and raised in a small city, yeah. 3 hours away from Buenos Aires capital. So I'm from the countryside. I moved to Buenos Aires when I was 13. I trained there. I trained prior to that, but I officially started like hardcore training with like really great teachers at age 13. I studied there in Argentina, and when I was 19, I moved to New York City. I studied at AMDA first, which is a conservatory program. I did musical theater, and while I was finishing the musical theater conservatory, I realized that wasn't the medium that I felt comfortable in. And a little bit after I finished my degree at the New School, putting a lot of emphasis into like acting, theater, and poetry. And so that's like formal studies. I never, ever, ever stopped taking classes. I'm a person that's very curious. I take a lot of classes. I love learning. I love being in the position of being new at something and allowing myself to be bad at something, and little by little getting better and enjoying the process, and kind of not having a deadline for things that I want to learn. Like not setting up a roof for myself, like I'm gonna do this before a certain age. I'm like, no, I'm gonna be learning my entire life. And I'm learning a lot of things because at one point I would only take things that were related to acting or singing, and all of a sudden I was like, I have all these other things that I'm curious about, and they're only gonna make me better at being a human. And my ultimate goal is to tell stories. And that's what I crave. That is what moves me. So if I'm a human and I'm a well-rounded human and I meet other humans and I learn from other humans, I'm only gonna know a little bit more about their experiences and how they view life and other perspectives, and it's only gonna enrich whatever project I'm working on. So that also like was giving myself permission to just like actually enjoy and live life, and not because I feel okay, I told you I'm gonna start talking, but
Please go for it.
um because sometimes I when I was out of school, I was like, I can only do theater, speech, like everything had a purpose.
Would you say that
And
was like a limiting belief, like
no,
cog in your brain?
I think like if you go to an acting class but you're not allowing yourself to live life, then what you will be able to like explore
I know where you're going.
while at class or while trying to create a character or be in the shoes of like a different person,
Be in the
it's gonna be
shoes of a
limited.
dentist.
Yeah, and it's just like I
Mhm.
don't know, like life is short and obsessing over career can happen so easy for artists. But it's also like, who am I? I'm an actor. Okay, that's something that I do, but what other things define me? And what is gonna make my way of saying things, Carmen's way of saying things, you know? I think that's what happened. So anyway, I keep training.
No, I love it. What is Carmen's way of doing this? I love it. I mean, I love first that you're telling us you're New York resident artist at the moment.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
came from a small town in South
Hmm.
America, moved to
New York
BA
City.
Buenos Aires,
Ah.
Argentina, then moved to New York, finished your degree, focused on poetry, then kept learning, and then not just focus on art things, but just kept developing this always learning mentality. Amiga, I love it. I loved, especially when you said, I am good at being bad at things and like putting myself in that position. I really like celebrate you for this because for me, that's been challenging in the past to put myself. I've been putting my like talking to myself. I know it's uncomfortable. You go do it. You gotta start somewhere. So I really applaud you for that attitude.
It's
When you
funny.
oh go
Sorry,
ahead.
Domi. It's funny because I went to hear Regina Spektor at Central Park like a couple weeks ago,
Oh my God.
and yeah, she's amazing, right? And and at one point she confused the lyrics, she messed up, and she's like, "See, I love my job because like nothing bad is gonna happen if I make a mistake, right?" Like there's this pressure that we have to
Oh,
be like perfect at what we do. And the truth is like, and even with the question that you just asked me, like, what's
mhm.
Carmen's way? Carmen's way of saying things or interpreting things, or feeling things today, it's gonna be totally different tomorrow. So
Yes.
I don't want to limit myself by defining how I do things. Because
Amiga, don't you feel
sorry.
that is sorry, cut you off there. Don't you feel that is so challenging when you're like writing your bio, you know? You have to like
I
put
have a
this.
very like open, so a friend of mine helped me create a very, and it's like a little pretentious, my bio, but basically it says like Carmen Borla, Argentinian artist based in New York City. Carmen, uh, I think something like my objective in life is to explore the human experience
I
deeper
love
and
it.
deeper and allow myself to find different formats because also it's this whole thing. So you're a singer or you're an actress, or are you a writer because you write poetry too? Oh wait, or are you I don't know, I'm not a
You
podcaster, but
paint
are you
too.
you can't do too many things because we were brought up with this mentality of like you do one thing and you're really good at that one thing. And the truth is like I have so many interests and I'm in the same world, so like if I'm writing something and this thing that I'm writing feels like a song, I'm going to use a language that I studied and that I work and that I love, which is music, melody, you know,
Mhm.
all the things about music to like create a song. But then if I write up, like I have poems that could easily be songs, but I know they're poems. And like there's an inner voice that's like that is poetry. We don't touch it. We can easily find a melody for it.
Okay.
But that's
So, since you're
anyway.
talking about this, and I've talked with other friends that were like, we are all these things. We don't want to limit ourselves.
Hmm.
And maybe we're talking about this. I know that at a point I used to limit myself. Would you agree with that? That you would limit, and it was like a process to let go of those limitations?
Oh, definitely. It's like, what am I? It's It's
Explore
what
life.
am I?
Ah.
But but it's also funny because eh, as artists is like we're not like when we're not attached to a project, I used to feel like I'm not that thing. Like if I'm not acting in a play, if I'm not acting in a short film or a feature film, whatever, if I'm not attached to a project, then what am I? I'm not an actress. Then if I'm not recording, if I'm not writing music all the time, or if I'm not performing, or if I don't have a date lined up, I'm what am I? Am I a musician? I'm a joke. And it's hilarious because, you know, I had this great therapist. I do therapy.
Bless her. Bless therapist.
I love
What do
my
you guys
therapist right
come
now, but
to?
it was a therapist. The one before the one that I have now is like talking about exes therapist. It's like the one before. Uh, I
What
love
do
my
you
therapist.
guys came to do with this like doubting words, nagging words, negative?
No,
I'm gonna put the
she
word negative there, negative self-talk.
well, she helped me like separate uh finances, like being productive in my finances, like making money from like the craft and and that is very very hard, and that's also like why okay if I'm doing this play and I'm getting paid, then I'm an actress. I can say out loud that I'm an actress. It was really hard for me to say like, hey, yeah, what do you do? I'm an actress, I'm a singer, or like I'm an artist. That's like a big word, and we're like I was so afraid, and I have so much respect for actors and musicians and like just artists. But like I don't know, my
The
mom is like
income,
I'm a lawyer, and she's not questioning even if she's not working as a lawyer. She's a
like
lawyer.
practicing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So she was like my therapist to finish that.
Mhm.
I thought my therapist was like every time you watch a movie, you're not just relaxing. You're watching the actor, you're watching the lights, you're watching the costumes, you're watching the camera movement,
The
like
music.
the music. You can't separate because now you know what it takes to make things. When you're reading a book, you're not just reading the book, you're paying attention. You're like searching for words that impact you. You're making lists. Like these are ways in which artists are working, and
Yes.
for some people, it looks like, oh, we're just having fun. We're just reading a book. Yeah, of course, I enjoy
We are
consuming art.
gathering information.
Definitely. We're like filling in the well of
Mhm.
images and information that then we use to create.
I'm bringing it back to what you said before, like taking in life to find
Mhm.
ourselves in that well. Like, of what of all these things that I'm gathering am I? And like, I guess that would be our our art after
And
all.
it's hilarious because, for example, I don't know, I study, I take Italian lessons. It's been 3 years with a
Really?
teacher that I adore. Yeah.
Buonasera. No, ciao.
Yeah, I could speak in Italian, but then if I make a mistake, I'm gonna be like,
Come on, come
Carmen,
on,
you
come on.
know how to say. No, no, I could, but the thing is like my after starting like a year into studying, I knew how to read. I understood, but like anyway, I was speaking Italian in Argentina, and then it was a long time since I practiced. And
Wait,
anyway, I
so a
was
year
studying,
into studying Italian?
like returning, because I studied when I was younger and my mom spoke to
Oh,
us in
correct.
Italian. But I was a year into studying and I got auditions in Italian, and it was so fun. I had to do the like whole scene. So a thing that had nothing to do, right, with acting, right, nothing to do. All of a sudden, it was like, oh, this comes in so handy. And it was so fun to ask my teacher, hey, would you like read the lines with me? Like,
I love it.
um, take this thing with me. And she was like all about it. And same happened, like one of the last things that I booked. I've been practicing yoga like consistently, like two or three times a week with a teacher.
Mhm.
And I got cast as a yoga teacher. And like, I mean, yeah, if you do it for like a year
Freaking
and a
yeah.
half,
Oh
I
my
mean,
God, that's
if
so
you do it for a year and a
exciting.
half, you know, you know what you're doing.
Can we
So
talk?
like,
What's the project about? Or not yet?
It's a small role in a series on uh Fox,
Ooh!
but it's very small, Dominga. It's so
It doesn't
excited.
matter. So I would like to take in. So we come from this town, we're taking in, we're letting out this is art and making space for this is Carmen. Basically, Carmen wants Italian, Carmen wants to do yoga, Carmen wants to
Mm-hmm.
do these things, and the universe starts presenting to you opportunities for that unique aspect that you are like proposing, I would say.
Right. Yeah,
I
it's kind
love
of
it.
like, yeah, I I
Thank you, universe.
I'm just thinking about it. It's funny
That's
while
what
I talk
this
with
is
you.
why this that's exactly why we're here. Um,
Yeah.
Amiga, thank you. I would love to ask you a little bit questions for other people that are like starting out. You said that when you moved to BA, you were already training. How
Mm-hmm.
did you start getting into art? How did you start training? And what was your focus when moving to BA to perfect your
Um,
technique?
okay, so I remember a moment in which my mom realized that I was singing in tune. I was very, very little, like I
Your
was
mom?
in kindergarten. My mom was like, "Can you sing that song again?" I was like singing a song about a caterpillar, like becoming a.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Eh,
yeah, yeah. Con cuna
eh,
amarilla, ¿no?
no, no,
No, no,
it's
that one.
another one. But I was singing it to her, and she was like, "Can you sing it again? Can you sing it again?" And my mom played piano. Like my mom is a
A pianist.
graduated from like the conservatory. She plays piano really
I
well.
am very interesting how you stop yourself. My mom is a like you like we're not very even like she's a pianist
She's a
girl. She
pianist. She's
plays
a
the
piano.
piano. She's a piano.
She's
So
a pianist.
Miss
She has
Miss
a
of Borla, Miss
Miss
Pianist,
Di
non-practicing
Stefano.
lawyer.
She's right.
Bless your
She's
mama.
it's funny because my mom right now, she is a jewelry designer. So I guess I had a really good example of a person that allowed themselves to grow up and accept that things changed and that what they were interested in like though it was never too late.
I
You know
understand.
how like they like some parents are like, oh, if I only could take like saxophone lessons. I'm too old right now. My mom was the opposite. She's like, I want to do this thing, and
You're
she would do
talking
it.
directly to my limiting beliefs. So
Oh, there's no
I
like
love it.
age. I
No, I
mean, we
agree.
all
I've been
have.
telling myself that. I'm like, I see in the back of my head, like I dropped piano when I was like 7, and I was like, oh freak. Like I'm never
I
gonna be in the
mean,
level that I would have been if I had continued then. I know we're like going again to the side of like being able to do a lot of things, but I wanna focus us back to so you were telling about how your mom noticed that you
yeah.
were singing in tune and she would play the piano, and how did that observing that, did it come from her
So
then, like
yeah,
you're
and
an
it's
artist,
also
or
it.
from you?
I don't know. I think I had a lot of energy as a kid, and they didn't know what to do with all that energy. So they were like, we're gonna sign her up. I guess it stuck with me because I still do the same thing. We're gonna sign her up to all the extra activities that we
Extra
can
program.
find in this small city. And that's literally what happened.
Which
I
were
did
those?
ceramics, um,
I love this.
a,
¿Cómo se dice en español?
montar
Horse riding,
caballos,
horse riding.
riding horses, tennis, um, theater,
Okay, so that's the theater
everything,
there.
voice, dance,
When did you start
every
for the
sport.
first time with theater? Like
I
experimenting,
was
going to a class.
6, 7.
Okay, 6, 7. So like, is that like theater for kids?
Yeah, it was really fun. We would do like
A
we
lot
would
of
take
improv?
classes with this teacher that we also had. It was like 3 times a week, and we would do like one day. It was
Whoa.
like, oh, I was drawing too since I was very young too on Saturdays. That's I just
That was like another class or by
that was
yourself?
another class, but this one too, we would create things. One day we would create objects. Like the teacher was great. Now that I think
You're
about
talking
it,
about the acting teacher?
the acting teacher would have like one day that it was like basically art, like crafts and stuff, and then one another day we would work on music, and another day we would act. And then at the end of the year, she would
What? They would
uh
give you music classes too? That's amazing.
like
I love it.
singing and dancing and all these. We were kids.
Where is this town? I want
I
to
know, but
know.
it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. I took
This is an
ballet too
advanced,
there, but that
this
was a
is
different
an
class.
art advanced town.
Anyway, she was a great teacher. I think that's the main thing. You can be,
Thank you to your teacher
you can, thank you to teachers.
mm.
Thank you to
For
teachers.
sending you
You
love
can be in the
already.
middle of nowhere and maybe you don't have like a teacher with the most degrees, but if you have someone that wants you, like allows you to explore and
I love that.
gives you tools and allows you to play and feel like the right way to get better at something is through play. Oof, you can learn so much. Even if you're not like they're not the most technical person. They give you the freedom to have fun and yeah, and to learn. Anyway, we would do a play at the end of the year. And
Okay.
we would do the play at the big theater in the city, and it was so exciting.
On the stage since
On
age
the stage,
6.
6, 7. Yeah. So I did that. And then my parents, it wasn't my decision to move to Buenos Aires. At one
It
point, I
wasn't,
started like my,
or it was?
no, it wasn't my decision.
Oh,
My
it
parents
wasn't.
decided to move us to Buenos Aires to have a bilingual education.
Interesting. Like
Um,
English or Italian?
English, English.
Okay.
I need to say that also, like my mom would drive me like at some age, I think 9, 10, 11, 12. She would drive me to the next town, like next city that was bigger and had more teachers so that I could take like specific classes, like jazz classes. And that woman, she would
Ah,
drive like
what's
100 kilometers
can I
twice a
ask you
week.
what's the name of your mother?
Cecilia.
I want to invoke Cecilia at this moment. I'm gonna give her a great hug, a pat on the
Hmm.
freaking back, and be like, girl, what an amazing way of raising a child. I mean, I
Yeah,
love it. So much
she was
dedication, especially
so
the
much
driving
dedication.
part.
She would
Uh,
drive twice a week and she would wait outside. I guess, yeah,
what,
very
what age, how old were you when you moved from your town to Buenos Aires?
I turned 13 in Buenos Aires. So
Okay.
13, almost 13.
Okay, so you had lots of physical activity all through your childhood, kind of musical theater, theater with a little bit of music going on. Um, what about, so we have I'm gonna put some quotes, air quotes here, like professional, like
Mhm.
intentional acting training. What about your voice? So,
So I was
for training
taking
your voice.
voice lessons with the teacher like in the other city. That was she was good, but then when I was 13, I started with like my first teacher, la maestra, ¿no? Like una maestra. She was Ida Terquier. She passed away a few years ago.
What was her
She
name
was
again?
a Ida Terquier.
Ida Tertier.
Terquier. Yeah,
Tertier.
she was an opera singer. And she was like a beautiful, beautiful soul. She became like my like my part of my family. She was my escape because when I moved to Buenos Aires, I studied with her for like 7 years. Um,
Okay. So
and seeing her every week, 7 years. So she saw me grow up and she sort of held my hand and with all the questionings that you can have as a teenager. That's
mhm.
what that's what I mean. Like I think I guess what I would say to people starting is
That's a great one.
a room where you're learning. It's a very vulnerable place and pay
Because
attention
why is
because
it a vulnerable place?
it is a vulnerable place when you're in an acting class or when you're working with your voice. The voice is like connected. It's part of like, it's not an instrument that you have outside your body. It's not
I
like
love
a guitar, that you can see it. It's inside of you and it's
this.
affected by like your life, your feelings, your
This is
nervous
what I teach
system,
in my
your
classes. And did this opera singer also share that like view with you?
Maybe she was a very it was a
Technical,
traditional
classical.
classical
Yeah, I know what you mean.
class, but her personality, because of the person that she was, taught me a lot of these things. I
Mhm.
feel like my teacher right now is very much like nervous system, breathing, like
Oh,
it's
I
more
love
of
it.
like that conversation. But back then it was like she was a great human. So I was in a room by myself, very trusting, very vulnerable, with a great, great person.
Okay.
And
I want to take you to that room. What do you think, or what would you tell to other souls that are in that path? They're starting the journey with their voice. What are like the things you want to whisper to them in their ear so they know as they're embarking in this journey of exploring the wonders of the voice?
that's a lot of responsibility. But
Yeah.
uh
Go party. No, no, I'm
no,
just kidding.
no.
Live life.
No,
What would you have? What would, if, let's focus it a little bit. What would you tell your young Carmen?
um well, I would say always trust your your instinct, meaning if not just with singing, with any classroom, because again, you're in a very vulnerable space, and some people are not the greatest people, and even if they're the best like teachers, if
Okay.
they're not giving you the space or like allowing you to play in the art and
It's like
explore,
if you're not vibing with them.
or if they're not vibing with you, because that can
Mm,
happen too. Like that happened to me and it was so hurtful. It was like, what have I done to this human being? And it has nothing to do with you.
mm.
But we like stay there because they're the teacher. And it's like, no, there's so many teachers. There's so many teachers out there. You want a maestro that I think is different. It's not just a teacher, it's a great human being that wants the best for you
Maestro is
as
like
well.
the sensei, kind of.
Right, right. You want someone that like has a big heart and they want the, like literally they celebrate everything that you discover in your journey, and they're
I
not attached to an idea of who you should be, you know?
Yeah, that's a biggie. Like, aren't we attached to that idea of who we should be? Like, I am
That's
going
the second part.
to
I
go
guess that's the
dispense.
second
Oh,
part.
sorry.
When like exploring, when exploring your voice is like we have so much information. We have a phone on our in our hands the whole
Mhm.
time, and we're watching and hearing and seeing how everyone else is singing and what is in, and it's like, okay, great, but what's my voice? Like what are the musicians that move me? And what are like, I don't know. I just
I want to take
how
you deep into words that you just said, amiga. You said the word instinct, and you just said the word moving. So,
mm,
for since this is a podcast to deepen into that experience of like what is instinct, what am I listening, what am I focusing? Let's go first with the instinct one. How would you describe instinct within yourself? What are you listening to?
how does it manifest in
Mm-hmm.
my life? Oof, I had to learn. I
Okay.
had to learn to trust my instincts.
What have you
Um,
learned? What is an example, for example? For example,
you
what's an
know what I
example?
think? It's I think I realized that if I write every day
Mm-hmm.
or every now and then, sometimes I write things that I'm not able to admit to myself out loud. But then I can hear them on the page. Does that make
Is
sense?
this like journaling?
Yeah, journaling. I think that's a really good way that I found that I can tap into my
The
instinct.
instinct. Okay, so I love it. So for everyone out there trying to start exploring what is their instinct saying, what Carmen is proposing here is like sit down and write some pages. Do you write this in the whenever you want, in the morning, at night?
Whenever you want, really. And I think if you start saying like this person makes me feel this way, or I get triggered by this. And
Yes.
then next day you're back again at it and you're still thinking about it and you write it down and then you write poetry and you're talking about them. Even if you don't admit you're talking about them, then it's like, okay, I'm going back. Every now and then you go back and you're like, I gotta pay attention to myself. I'm neglecting something that's happening to me. And my instinct is saying, hey, I need to go a different way. And that is okay. You know,
Okay, okay. Wait, I love what you're saying. I want to like grab it and like give it like super practical. So learning, so connecting with our instinct, being able to observe when something is not working from for us,
or
having
working,
uh or
or
working,
working.
or
Mm-hmm.
when something is not working, and just having the I would put like the balls, the bravery,
The courage.
whatever, the courage to explore another direction.
Yeah.
I love
Or
it.
like even to talk out loud. I mean, therapy is another great way of
Mhm.
I love therapy. I'm always gonna vouch.
Is it, do you do, let me ask you, what type of therapy do you do? How recurrent, through what medium? What's your preference? Since, especially since you have some experience with therapy, what's your favorite type?
Uh I right now I'm doing one that I'm probably gonna say it wrong, but I think it's
Go for it.
EDMR. ED is the one that you have like
You have what?
you have like sounds alternating and
Like binaural beats.
yeah,
Mm.
and it's great. I love my therapist. I do
Yes.
it every 15 days. That's not a
Okay.
therapy that you can hold, like, you're not with them for like really long periods of time. Like, I work on something and then I take breaks and then I'm like,
Like
hey,
you
I need you
come
back in my
to
life.
work in something concrete, basically. I
Yeah,
love that, amiga. That's my favorite type of, because it's what we did with RTT too. Like we go to our root cause and we work on this specific thing, and then we just, it's like the trigger, and then allow the experience, the journey to show you the way. It's going to be unique to each person. Mm.
yeah.
And trust that you got it within you. We are helping each other, but it's within me, within me, within you. Okay, so nowadays you're doing this.
But I did like,
Mhm. Talk
um,
therapy.
yeah, I just did therapy for a long time, like a long, long time. And I think just having space to be with someone else that has a different perspective,
Okay.
um that yeah it, and have this and having a space in which you can be honest and admit things out loud to yourself and like go back and start connecting and seeing how things, you know, how we are always in like a circle and like
Mhm.
pattern, like this great thing my therapist said, this great thing is like life is like a spiral, and have doing therapy is like having the spiral go up and up and up, meaning it gets smaller because
Oh,
it gets easier for you to get out of patterns that are not great. So like the
I,
circle gets like, you process those things that you're like, okay, I'm falling again into this pattern that I learned when I was young or I learned through trauma or whatever, but now I have all these tools and now my little circle is going to be smaller. I'm going to get out of it
oh,
faster.
I love this. I love this image, amiga. It makes it so clear. So let's not get stuck in the circle. Let's go up the spiral. It's like the DNA, we keep evolving up
Right.
instead of the, and they talk about the karma circle, when you're like stuck in a pattern. You just mentioned some tools. When you have these tools, that's what this channel is about. Mental health
Yeah.
tools. I don't want to put mental health because it can be any tools. What, Carmen, are some like amazing tools that you live for and practice even nowadays in your life?
Oof. Um, it keeps it keeps changing.
Mhm. What are like,
Therapy,
maybe
of
even if you
course.
haven't used them now, what are some tools that have been essential in your, I'm gonna say artist journey, in your journey? You're an artist, you have a journey, artist journey.
Yeah. Um, well, personally, I think
Yeah.
it's therapy. I love therapy. I think it's very important for me to write. Maybe because that's the way, again, that's the way I can connect to my instinct. I think connecting with my body is really important. I do that through movement. I do yoga, I dance, I do movement research, which is basically looking like a crazy person and moving and dancing.
It's like animal movements, kind of.
Yeah, it's a mix of things. There's like different
I
different
love it.
schools of movement, and I kind of
Explore.
explore like all of them little by little. Um, so moving is very important because I feel like I'm a person that my thoughts are very loud. It's like boiling water, and a way for me to like calm down is like activating my body. It's like maybe Jess, a friend of ours, would say like that's such an Aries thing. I'm like,
That's
yeah.
such that's such an Aries thing. Are you an Aries, amiga?
Yeah,
What's your sun?
Aries.
Oh, sorry, your moon. So Aries your
Uh,
sun, moon,
Gemini,
rising. Here we got some
Taurus.
Taurus. Okay. We got some balance there. Okay, amiga. So we were talking about these tools you've like lived for.
Yeah, and then
Therapy, writing, connecting with the body, exploring the body, and then
and also like there's I think after the pandemic, I started connecting with two concepts, the concept of joy and the concept of pleasure, right? Because for example, pleasure, we always attach it to like sex and genitalia, and like, yeah, that's really important in life. That's really, really important. But I think we can we can sorry, love.
No, I love it. I love it.
I think
So we're
I think
talking
it's
joy, pleasure.
also yeah, I think it's also like how can I make an activity, for example, I don't know, cooking for myself. I'm alone. I live by myself. Sometimes like, oh, I gotta cook for myself. No, I'm gonna make it a pleasurable experience. And I'm a person that I'm very like I mother people. This is a pattern that I'm trying to get out of, but I do love taking
Just
care
if
of
it hurts
people,
yourself, amiga, I totally
of
feel with
course.
the mother. I'm a Cancerian. It's been a thing that I've been like, oh my God, but I mother you, I think, in my like when we mother
Yes,
each other,
definitely.
like it feels nice, you know?
Yeah, but I think it's depending on who you're doing it to.
Exactly, exactly. It's like
And
the relationship.
but it's
But you were
usually really hard
talking
for me to mother myself. So this is the thing. Through
mm,
pleasure, and mothering is not the right thing to say because I have a mother.
like
My mother can mother me.
nourishing, like
It's more
that
like
concept.
it's how do I take care of myself? If it's so easy for me to take care of all these other people, how through
I'm gonna
pleasure,
write this.
how do I take care of myself? How do I make a meal or like have a breakfast? Because if not, it's like I gotta have a breakfast and I do everything fast and I don't pay attention. It's like, no, Carmen, like take the time.
Mhm.
Sometimes when you're in a rush, slow is the correct
It's the way
pace
to go.
to is the way to go because I like that's a thing that my dad installed in my brain. Eh, Despacio que estoy apurada, like slow that I'm in a rush.
Vístame lento que estoy apurado. My mom used to say that
Exactly.
too.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
cool. Napoleon.
Amiga, so I am so interested in the joy and pleasure. I'm totally gonna like write a video about this soon for sure. I've talked about this in my Spanish videos because even I don't know if you're aware of what is it, the Woman's Code book. I was gonna
Oh
ask
yeah.
you for if you've read any books that supported this finding the pleasure and the joy and nourishing. Is there any books you would recommend for me? The ones that stand out is like Woman's Code and Women Who Run with Wolves. Like those are
I
two.
read those two. And
Mhm.
I think I guess that search, okay, podcasts too. I love
I love
podcasts.
podcasts.
But I think the search and the redefining what those things look like in my life for me came from a conversation with a friend of mine, Adelaida
Mhm.
Cameron. She's a coach and she's like my first girlfriend, meaning girlfriend.
My girly.
Girly, my girly.
Mhm.
Um, she's my childhood like best friend. And
I love how you the tone of your voice when you like talk about this person.
I
It's like
love that woman.
love, and this is like pleasure. Like pleasure can be there, like this person, the
Oh
things we
yeah.
share. I love
Pleasure
it.
can be something so small. It can be like taking a different road while you walk home. So like detouring for a minute. Like paying attention. Paying attention is like such a great way to find pleasurable moments, you know?
Being
Just
receptive.
watching people, I don't know, like so many ways. And it's gonna look different for everybody, but she sort of
I like
started
that.
saying
Mhm.
she sort of started saying like, okay, what brings you joy? Like
That's why
what
she asked you.
sparkles?
She's like,
Yeah, she
Carmen,
get
what brings you joy?
you two get along so well.
We already love each other.
Yeah. But yeah,
Carmen, what
she
brings
was
you joy? Can I
what
ask you
brings me
that? Things like
joy?
that. Carmen, what brings you joy?
What brings me joy? Taking myself out to see live music brings me
To see
joy.
live music? Okay.
I love being like I love this is another thing. I'm like I'm not gonna stop doing anything because I have to do it by myself. And that's a
Oh
great
yeah,
thing
me
that I
neither.
love about myself. Some people can't really.
We gotta learn. It's a process. I would take myself dancing. I want to take you back to what brings you joy, Carmen. So you take
Moving,
yourself to okay.
dancing, reading. Reading brings me a lot of joy. Um, talking to my friends,
Ooh,
traveling, eating good food. I have a food dance. I love food. I adore food. Um, yeah, nature, just like
mhm. Can I ask you which was the last live music performance that really sparked joy for you? Do you remember?
oh yeah. I mean, I watch a lot of live music, but I this weekend I had a great Saturday,
Mhm.
and the day ended with me like my friends were playing Loco Beach, that's a cumbia band.
Loco
My
Beach
friend
is the name of the band.
of the band,
Okay. Is it,
and
can we hear it in Spotify or YouTube?
yeah. Teo
Okay.
Pardo is like is one of his bands, and a few friends are were playing with him.
Mhm.
And I think I had a whole beach day, and then I ended up going to Rockaway. They were playing there, and I ended up dancing.
I
I mean,
love Rockaway.
yeah, and I ended up dancing to them. I mean, I see a lot of like last night. I don't even know her name. I had to search. I heard this beautiful
Please
French artist.
give us a name, amiga, and we'll put those in the description below so people can check your like current find outs. I love it. Okay,
Okay,
so
that's
this
another
local
thing. Like
beach. Mhm,
I don't have. I think there's space for everything. There's
mhm.
space for every type of music.
All
There's.
styles,
It
you
doesn't
mean?
mean you have to. Yeah, styles, rhythms. Um, like there's because I will fall into this thing like this is a good artist, this is a bad artist. I'm like,
Okay. In the
look,
past?
this
So in the past?
in the
Okay.
past,
Mm.
and now it's like I'm gonna go listen to all of them, and I'm gonna allow myself to be joyful while listening. And sometimes I go see people that I love their recording and the live. What while I watch them live, I'm like, okay, this was great. Like it takes a lot of courage, or they're very big and I go see the show, but they don't move me. Some other times I go see
Mm.
another genre that I don't listen constantly, and like it sparkles something. So I think,
I love this. I'm gonna basically
yeah.
repeat what you back to what you're saying to me. So, because I'm also working on this, Amiga, which is that like that judgment that might come up nowadays. I'm putting a boundary and being like, that's a judgment. I'm gonna choose to find appreciation for maybe I didn't like this performance, but I'm gonna find that thing. Their outfits were cool.
Oh yeah,
They
the
had a nice
lights.
smile,
You're
you
gonna
know, like
learn.
finding like instead, because this is Camila's Itali's dad. She told me this thing about like when you judge others, an artist, anyone, you are judging yourself too. When you
Mm.
judge art, you're judging yourself. So okay, you want to give judgment, take judgment too. You
But I
said
gotta
the
say one more thing,
oh
Domi.
yeah,
I this
about
past
that.
Saturday, I went to the beach on Sunday. Saturday, a friend of ours,
Mhm.
Fernando Sassi. He presented his music Thursday, Friday, Saturday at Jazz at Lincoln Center. And watching my friend and his wife, who's one of my best friends, on stage singing this beautiful music that he composes. He's an amazing percussionist. He's
I'm gonna
toured,
read it. This is Paloma Munoz and Fernando Sassi,
yeah,
amazing power couple. Please go ahead.
and musicians and my soul
And
family.
parents.
My I'm like the aunt in the family.
Yeah, I see.
And to
This
see
is
them on stage and they invited me and I did some like backup singing
nice.
too, and being on stage with them, it was, and seeing him
Fernando.
enjoy music so much, like really open heart,
Oh, I love this.
being in the music, that was like the most, I guess, yeah, that was so moving.
I was gonna ask you,
I was bawling then.
you are answering the question basically that I was gonna make is what is it moving? So open heartedness in when someone is enjoying what they're doing,
Oof.
what are other things besides the style or where you're listening to or the type, the how big it is? What are the things that move you, Carmen, when you go to see? We can even like open up. It doesn't need to be only music. It can be
Mm.
any type of art. But let's start by music. What is moving to Carmen?
When I see someone allowing themselves to express whatever they have to express. And it can be ugly. It can be really, really ugly.
Mm,
Meaning ugly in terms of like hard and dark and
dissonant.
just by doing it dissonant and like kind of
Mhm.
like what are we doing here? But just knowing that that person had the courage to I say to move the furniture. You know, when you move the furniture,
Okay.
like the inner furniture in your life,
Mhm.
because once you see that there's dirt under that rag, you're never gonna unseen it. Is that the
I
word? Yeah,
love
unseen.
it.
Um,
It
so
is
it's
there.
like it's there, and they allow themselves to
And they
talk about it.
showcase this in their art.
Yeah,
I love this,
yeah.
amiga. I'm gonna ask you this following question, introducing it as such. I remember when I was living in New York, it was like 2015, having this belief that would really limit me in putting content and art out there.
Out.
That was when I am zen enough, when I heal all my traumas, when my technique is ready, when I find this, when I am quote unquote pro, that's when I'm gonna share my music and of course be successful. And I totally broke that glass and was like, F that. I'm gonna do music right now as raw as it comes. I'm putting out that information. This is totally not something I've like worked all through. There's a lot of emotion inside me. I'm always tenderly, kindly telling Dominga to put herself out there as much as possible from her like wild, sensual, sexual, whip, dark empress woman, to the super soft, motherly, kind, vulnerable part of me, and it's like all the spectrum, but we're just like trying to put ourselves in a box. That was so
Mm.
important for me in my artist journey to really start putting myself out there. Stop trying to be quote unquote perfect and just putting art for what I am today. What is it for you, Carmen? A big limiting belief that you had to burn to the ashes to really start moving forward with your artist career?
Well, that one that you just talked about, I mean, that's huge.
Yes,
And it's
baby.
not something that because we are like a little package of contradictions, right? We're like a little pack of like, and like, yeah, exactly. Like we're
Movement.
humans. We're like a contradiction with legs.
We are.
We are a contradiction with legs.
Mhm.
I being a perfectionist, I know it's like something like, oh, it's so great to be. No, I mean, it doesn't take you anywhere. Like it
Being a
really doesn't.
perfectionist doesn't take you anywhere. I totally agree, Amiga. I was
No,
journaling about this today.
it does not, because you're not allowing yourself to fuck up, to make mistakes.
Importance of fucking up.
Yeah, and like it's so good to be bad at something. It's so good to
I
like
love
have,
it.
because it's good to have to think, okay, great, I like released this out. I released an album,
Can you
right?
write a song about this? It's so good being bad at. I want the song, Carmen Borla.
Okay, we can make it happen. But
Okay.
I wrote an album, right? And I finished recording it,
Mhm.
and I would listen to the album before releasing it, and I was like, it sucks.
What was it?
I
What was
suck.
the talk?
I like, oof, Carmen, you can't sing, Carmen. Also, at the time, I had this whole thing going on with like my accent, and like you gotta like I think that some institution embedded in my head that I wouldn't be able to work if I didn't have a perfect American accent.
When you're a
Eh,
Latina.
right. When you're
Okay.
not like English is definitely not my first language.
Okay.
So I have videos of me recording at the studio, calling a friend. I wouldn't record if I didn't have a friend outside whose language English was their first language, correcting my pronunciation,
While you're
right?
recording in the
While
studio?
I was recording
It
the
sounds
tracks. Yes,
tight, amiga.
it's fucked up. But
It's
okay,
fuck
it was my
you.
I did it. I did it.
Okay.
And I
What did you
see
learn
those
from it?
videos. I learned that, bro, just relax. Don't give yourself up.
I mean, it's funny that you put this out because I wanted to ask you this question. I wanted to
Mhm,
ask,
mhm.
what would you tell to the Carmen that was starting the album in the ear?
No, I think it had to happen that way. I think
Mm,
because
I
I
love
listen
this.
to that album now, and I since I recorded the album, which was I finished at the beginning of 2020, and we didn't release it until way later. Like
Mhm.
I'm a different person. You know, I'm a whole other being, but it's like I respect and just I listen to the album and I watch the videos and I'm like, okay, maybe I wouldn't choose some certain things, but I do love like you gotta you gotta learn and it's a process to love that Carmen, to be like, you did
Okay.
what you had to do and how you were able to do it. And it sounds really good. And
And
it's
you
a
birthed
celebration.
it.
And it's also like I learned so much in the process of making that album. And I was like, the universe sent me this amazing human being that's my producer and that I'm still working with him. And from that recording, I created my band. And I'm so grateful for them as human beings. Because that's another thing. I want to be surrounded by people that I have fun with, that are great musicians, but also are people that I feel like I want to hang out with them. Not that I'm struggling. It's like, oh, I gotta rehearse with this person. No,
Okay.
it's
I have a few questions.
the joy.
Like, I love what you're telling me now. So you worked this in 2020, then like it would took like a little bit to release it, and
Mhm.
that you learned so much through this process. I have so many questions are coming up. Let's start with so you told me I wouldn't change a thing. I guess you had to learn the things you learned.
Yeah.
Um, but another one, so tell me a little bit about this album. Let's give it some love, some space.
Mhm.
So what's the name of the album? I would love to learn like what inspired you, as in maybe what was going on in your life. If you want to share a little bit of that. And what was your vision? What was your vision? Were you striving for something? And did you have any reference for this specific album?
I was at a point in which I was waiting on papers for a long time
Mhm.
and
How did that
paperwork,
feel?
meaning, yeah, I was sort of trapped because everything was in process, but everything was stuck. So I felt trapped and I couldn't audition and I could only participate in certain productions because everything was I was legal. The things like I didn't have the paper to
To like show.
present, to go to another job, to like audition for other things, to sign for other things. So, and I couldn't leave the country, and I lost a lot of people that I loved, and I couldn't even mourn them around my family. And it was a very tough period. And I was
This is before or through the process of the creation of them?
in the process, like
Mhm.
before I started recording, when I started writing the music, and I said to myself, I want to have control over something, and I don't want anyone to tell me in which, like, is going to be a pop album, is it going to be this thing? I'm going to write the music that I want to write, that I feel I need to write, and I want to have fun doing it, and I
Okay.
want to be in control of like how it
I
sounds.
I want, okay, so those were two like vision parts of like this was essential part of the vision. I
That
want
was
to
the
have
call
fun.
to,
I want to just do the music that I feel like doing, and I want to lead this project.
and then
Mhm.
I started saying to myself, I need a producer that believes in me, that trusts in me, that respects my artistry. And he came through an acting job. He
I
was
love.
producing a music video that I was acting in.
Need a producer that trusts in me.
Yeah, it's more like you need to work with people that respect you, I think,
I love
more
that.
than anything. They don't need to like your music. Of course, if they like it, it's much better, but they
Yeah.
gotta respect you as a human and as an artist.
Mhm.
And I came into like, I met Rafa Urbina. We love him. We love him so much.
Sending love to
I
Rafalina.
love him. I adore him.
This is your
Um,
producer.
this is my producer. He's still
So
my producer, and he's
you
also the
met.
drummer in my band.
So you're met in an acting gig?
He was producing a music video. And I auditioned through a friend that was like, "Hey, there's this music video. My friend is like casting it, and he's producing it, and he was producing the music of that music video too." So I auditioned, and I he it was such a blast. And then I told him, "Yeah, I sing." And he was like, "Oh, do you want to collaborate on something? I'll give you a beat. You'll come to the studio and see if
Esa
you can
Rafa.
write something." And I went into the studio, and I wrote a song with him in like an
Did you
hour. I don't
did you
know.
did you brought anything to the studio? Like how do you prepare for that particular special session?
No, because I didn't know.
You came to
I don't
improvise.
remember.
Oh, you don't know.
Yeah, I came. I don't remember how it went. But I just remember being my little thingy, writing and in the booth and being like, "Okay, this is gonna be like this." And
Mhm.
he
Rafa, yeah.
again, Rafa
Mhm.
said, I talked to him afterwards, like, "I want to do this. I have this idea. I want to do an EP." It was an EP. "I want to do 5 songs." Ended up being 11 songs.
Freak yeah.
And he was like, "Okay." He didn't try to define it. He never said no. I would come up and be like, "This is gonna start like this and this." And he would never say no. He was like, "Okay, let's try it."
I
And
love
then
that. That's so cool.
oof, he allowed me to
He
play.
would never say no.
He would
I
always be like, "Let's try it." "Okay, let's
I
try it."
think that's so important. I'm reading this book. Finished it actually about with Rick Rubin. It's The Creative Way, I think it's called, because there's the
Okay.
artist way and the creative way. And he talks about that when you're like in the sacred place, you gotta try the idea of the other one instead of just like shutting down. If you shut someone in the creative space, you're telling them basically like shh,
You're wrong.
and
Yeah.
then you're like tied and because we could like try it out and both decide like yeah it's cool but maybe it's not the way or it doesn't sound great or it was a good idea but maybe it's not cool for this project. So I love the importance of saying yes to the ideas in the recording studio and trying them out.
And it's also like, I think that's important too in acting, like having a director that's like, "Let's try it, you know? That's way better than having an actor that just comes into the room and it's like, "It's gotta be this way." And because you have another actor talking to you and you're like, if they have the opposite idea, then there's no connection. If you're both saying like, "Yes, let's do it. Yes, yes, I'm open to like exploring," then whatever comes out is going to be a collective creation. It's not just going to be like an enforced idea of how things need to be. I
Because
do think I
there
do
is that
think
kind of, sorry, Amiga, I cut you off
no. I anyway, he allowed me and he said yes.
there. Mhm.
And I felt so hurt. And I felt
With Rafa.
with
Bless
Rafa.
you, Rafa. We love you.
We love Rafa.
We love Rafa.
Um, and I went into the studio and I had done a workshop at the public theater called Bars. It was like the fourth time that they did it. Rafael Casal and David Diggs created this workshop with the help of the public theater, and it was like only 10 of us got in that year, and it was poetry and rap. I'm really bad at rapping. They were
I
really
love
nice.
rapping.
All the other guys and in the group, they were very supportive, but I'm really bad at it. And like physical theater, it was a mix of things, right? And so I did that for 2 months, I think, that year before I started working on the album. And I
Mhm.
that workshop of 2 months, like twice a week for like, I don't know if it was like 4 hours a day, put me in a very great everything was inspiring. Everything. Because they will give you a word, you have 2 minutes, you
Okay.
don't overthink. And so I collected a lot of writing. I collected a lot of poetry. I collected a lot of feelings. And I allowed myself, I was so caged from the exterior and the outside world and like
With the
paperwork
papers,
world.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And like
This felt freedom.
people passing and
The value of
things
duality,
happening.
amiga. The value of duality. Like maybe if you hadn't have that like strain in the paperwork area, maybe you wouldn't have felt the pleasure of feeling free on stage and improvising at the bars, New York Public Theater. I would love to for you to explain a little bit better that exercise that you were doing. Like you would pick a word and you would have 2 minutes. Like, how
Oh,
did the exercise
we
go?
had, we played. That's the main thing. We played so much, so many games. We had, we had like three amazing humans that would guide us. Um, and we played games. We played
The
like a
names
different,
of
and
the
my names. No, I
yes,
remember,
but
no,
these
uh,
humans were guiding, they were guiding the play, okay?
they were guiding the whole thing. Carl Iglesias, my friend, Sophia, and I'm blanking on the most important one.
No, no, no worries, don't
He
worry about
was
the name. I want to know about the exercise.
He's the most amazing dancer and human. Oh my God. Well, I'm gonna be sad because I don't remember.
Yes.
Um, Chris, Chris,
Okay.
Chris.
This is the
Anyway,
director of the games.
Rafael and David were the ones that came up with the workshop, but they were touring that year. So we were with Chris and Sophia and Carl who guided us, and they had all these games. Like we would do like all these, I can't even, like they were so fun.
I
All
want
these
to know the
different.
one that they gave you a word and you had 2 minutes to
Oh,
what?
okay. So we were writing poetry. So
Okay.
the whole idea of the workshop was collaboration, was working in collaboration.
Mhm.
Everything was done in collaboration. So
Like una colabora, like how do you say, una construcción colaborativa,
una
like a
colaboración.
collaborative construction
Yeah, it's
thing.
like working together. Say
Yes.
like we're in a team. We have they assigned us a word. Let's
Mhm.
say it's light,
Okay, so
and
Carmen and Domi have the word light.
right, and then they give you have 4 minutes to
Mhm.
separately write something about light, because for you it can say like the light back in Chile at the door of my parents, like light can trigger something, and for me light could be like, I don't know,
I see the spotlight in my
I
face.
see this, yeah, it can be something very different,
The
like I don't
light in
know,
his
the light of the
eyes, just
candle instead of the
lights.
light of a light bulb, I don't know. And we would like have 4 minutes, we write, we just like don't
Okay,
think, we just
we
write, and
write.
then they will be like, okay, you
We
have 3 minutes to put the two things together, to find a way to make from two things to make it into one and to be seamless. And you have 4 minutes, let's say 4 more minutes,
okay.
and you work on that. So you got to be really good at they say killing your babies, you know,
Yeah.
working working towards what's best for what you're creating and not what's best for your ego.
I love this. Can you repeat it like slow and meaningful?
Yeah. The whole idea of collaboration in whatever thing you're doing, whatever job you have, is to always think that you're working towards what's best for what you're creating
Mm.
and not what's best for your ego. Even in a friendship, right? We're friends and we have an issue, we have a problem. Let's think of that issue outside of both of us. And we're going to talk about it. Now, if we talk from our egos, we're going to get so defensive. And no, no, I didn't say that. Even like, don't cut that line. That line is my line. You have 3 lines. I have 2 lines in this poem.
Okay, so
You
like
know what I mean?
counting.
But
I
if
said
you're
that
like,
you did dance. Mm-hmm.
but if you're coming from a place of like, I, I want this to be solved. I want this poem to be the most that I want it to be the most
A collective goal.
beautiful, the most whatever, or like I want to represent light in this way, and we both set up our mind, we're gonna represent light in this way, or we're gonna make it one. Then if I say, Domi, we're gonna have like your word doesn't fit in the measurement of this
The
poem,
goal
you're not gonna be
we're
like,
going for, yeah.
you're not gonna be offended because your word is not the most important thing. Mine, if we had, and then we had to add melody to parts of it or rhythm.
Mhm.
And then if we go into that layer and you're offended because I cut your word, because you think I cut your word instead of like we decided.
Carmen doesn't respect me. She cut my line about the
Exactly.
light in the ocean.
Exactly. But
And then
if
I'm
you
gonna be
think,
like tied to my butt, and I'm not gonna let all these words you've been talking about, like I'm not gonna be open and receptive to basically keep creating with you.
right. And I think there's no way you can. So again, the step number 1 is respecting each other.
Mhm.
You can't do that. You can't collaborate with a person that you don't respect. Because then you're gonna take everything personal. You can be like, what? No, everything's
Respect
gonna be
things.
personal. And then once you establish, I respect you and I respect your craft, and
And you don't take like comments through the work personal.
yeah, it's like it's really not about. And then he's like, you have superpowers that I don't have. What am I gonna do? I'm just gonna like curl up in a ball and be like, I don't have Dominga superpower. We're gonna be like, let's use your superpowers and let's use mine, and we're gonna be way more powerful together.
Yay! Did you heard it, world? We need all of our superpowers. Okay, it's not a competition.
It's not a competition, and it's like
Competition.
I go into the studio and like all the musicians are way better at playing their instruments than I am. I don't play the guitar like my guitarist played the guitar. Like he's only gonna make me look better just because he is deciding to put his energy and into this thing that we're creating.
I
And
love
I
it.
am so grateful for that, you
And he's
know?
crying because she doesn't have your voice or your skills or your poetry. So basically, comparison, burn it. I mean, I'm
Kills
gonna bring
creativity.
you, how is that?
Comparison kills creativity.
Comparison kills creativity. People, everyone, you out there,
And
us.
like life, if you're gonna be comparing yourself like, oh, this
Yes,
other person's like
I know. I
prettier to whoever standards, right? Prettier than me. And I'm like, oh, just get out of your way. Just get out of your
get
way.
out of let's get out of our way. And I feel I'm a person that people observe me as a very self-confident. I am very self-confident, and my logic tends to do that, so I am putting those boundaries in the comparison area. Carmen, I want to take you back to your baby album. I asked you for the name of it.
Words.
uh Words. So we were talking about like just getting into words. So
Sorry.
this workshop at the in New York Public Theater, like got you
Yeah.
on the right spot, feeling super inspiring. Everything was inspiring, you said. I love it. I had this other question that I wanted to ask you. So you mentioned a few times like things that you enjoy that move you, like people that are like enjoying their self with an open heart, that respect your work, that respect you. And I wanted to ask you, what are your preferences through your journey? What have you learned are Carmen's preferences when working with people? It can be in the studio, in the rehearsal room, or even on stage. What are your preferences today?
Okay, another thing I need to add, respecting doesn't mean liking. There's a lot of people that respect you, but they don't
Yeah.
like what you're doing, and that's fine.
It's
Because we
like
all have,
different preferences and styles. It's like
yeah, they
if
don't need to love
you don't
you.
like what you're wearing, I'm like, oh my God, Carmen, like I don't like your shirt. Like it doesn't matter if I don't like your shirt.
Doesn't matter. But you respect me so you can have a conversation with me with whatever I'm wearing, right?
Yeah. I respect how
Exactly.
I respect how I can respect what you're wearing even if I don't like what you're wearing.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So,
Working with people.
working with people, what's important for me?
Hmm.
Um,
Like I would say not even important, like essential, like the kind of things that you would be like, that it will be like a red flag nowadays that you would choose not to keep investing your beautiful energy with.
um,
Or
passive aggressiveness
what's the
leads
joke?
nowhere.
Okay. What is an
Um,
example of passive aggressiveness that you've experienced? We don't need to give names, just tell the story.
I don't know, people comparing,
Again, the
like
comparison tool.
people,
We're not
yeah,
gonna
but
say
if you're,
tool, the comparison. Bullshit.
yeah, so sometimes like I've been in studios and like I had just sang my soul
Mhm.
out, and they would be like, "Oh, remember?" And they would immediately start talking about some other performer's voice, even if they like a way better acrobat than I am
It's like
with
pile
their
up the
voice. Like that's very disrespectful because you're comparing me to
Yeah,
that
I know
other
what you
person.
mean.
It's like it's like okay, I'm going. It's like having sex with a person, being in bed with a person, and being like, "Oh, my ex's blank was much better than yours."
And
It's
you're
like
like,
you don't do that.
No, you don't do that. That's rude.
You don't
Rude.
do that. You don't do that. So like I don't know. It's just like for me, it's like
Sounds like
basic.
holding
Just
space,
holding
like
space for the
it's
person,
Mhm.
knowing that a creative process is a process, and it like we like it takes a few and this is like it's so easy to do it with the band because Rafa is like that. It's like it's not perfect right off the bat. Sometimes
Mhm.
it is and it's great, but it's not always going to be like that.
Losing
And
perfection. We don't need to be perfect straight
and
away.
allowing yeah, saying yes and trying things even if they don't work out. Um and just like having like respecting the other person as a human being, not just an artist, just like being and and yeah,
Being a
just
nice
being a good
human.
human. Just be a good human. It
Really.
really there's not enough time to be. I mean,
Amiga,
my
we'll
grandma
have
my
to.
grandma would always say like in Spanish, but be nice or life will like bite you in the ass. I mean,
Be not you heard it. Be nice or life will bite you in the butt, in the ass,
but
sorry.
yeah, sorry.
No,
Uh,
no. I love
yeah,
it. I love it. I mean, I was gonna say we'll have to have another full podcast about being a nice human. We'll invite the girls to that one.
yeah.
So I love it, amiga. Working with people, the importance of being respectful with each other, being respectful even when we don't like each other's ideas, not surrendering is another word, surrounding ourselves with great people, and allowing things to work and not striving for perfection. I love it. And the importance of not comparing, and I'm gonna bring there like appreciation, when you put your soul, it means so much. If you're like, whoa,
Appreciation.
thank you, that brings like energy to the space.
I have
um
my voice teacher right now who I love, Selena. when I started taking classes with her, it was so funny because I had been taught by a lot of people before since very young, right? And she was like, "Wow, that was great. That was incredible. Did you hear that?" And now we're like, "What's wrong with this woman? She's celebrating. She's celebrating what it." And one day I stopped her and I was like, I feel so awkward whenever you're celebrating something that I do." And she
You
goes
told
like,
her?
"Yeah," I told her like, "This is so strange." And she goes like, "But if I don't talk about things that are working out, fine, that you're achieving, that you're not gonna have a perception of where's the right place that your voice needs to be, what's the like what how your body is feeling is, or you're not gonna have a perception of what is right. You're only gonna have a perception of what you did wrong. And so you're never gonna be able to like when I'm not there, be like, okay, how did it feel? How did I feel physically when that sound worked out? Like, how was I breathing? Like, because she
I
was
know what
like,
you mean.
no, like that doesn't work. If you're in a ballet class and they tell you that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, old school, we respect it. We had to go through that. That's no longer the way to grow. For me,
The way now is
being
appreciate,
gentle,
being
being
gentle,
generous, being like nice to yourself,
being
and
generous with those compliments.
yeah, and like how horrible that I was like so shocked at the fact that this teacher that was like allowing me to grow was celebrating my growth. Because
After all the pain I've taken, all the
yeah, because it will
criticism,
be
now you have the odyssey to come and compliment me? What the fuck, dude?
I would have great teachers, but I would come out of the class being like, I was stuck on one note for 30 minutes because I was not getting the placement, or I was not getting whatever the
Mm.
I was not getting it, but like I was so in my head. So singing would become, or like whatever I was doing would become such a mental burden. I will get burned instead of being like, okay, let's move on. We'll come back to it later and you'll see, we'll approach it a different way, and celebrating the fact that we can approach it a different way. Um, anyway, we love Silvina. We love the fact that she
I,
celebrates us.
Sylvania was sending you love.
Again, teachers.
Totally
We love
feel
teachers.
you. We love you. Sylvania, my mentor, my hypnotherapist mentor, Marisa Peer, she also said that like after you do a session, or in our case, after you do a show, after you can say after you do your work, whatever, take some time and take notes about what you liked, about what you did, instead of, you know, and
Yeah,
start.
because the mentality is always like, what you did, like, I did this wrong, I did this wrong, this
Let me
didn't work.
fix it. Yeah.
And it's like, it happened. You can't go back. You really can't. You're going to hold on to everything that went wrong, or you're going to learn from that, and you're going to hold on to the things that work so you can actually repeat or expand those things that work. But I mean, I'm saying this, it's so easy to say it,
It's
but in
easy
the
to.
practice, it's like,
How many years have you been since you start studying professionally, since you chose this as your career? How many years has it been, if I might ask?
okay, it's going to seem like I'm exaggerating, but when I was 9 years old, I said, I want to do this.
Okay.
And I think for a long time, and like 6 years ago, I started saying this thing like, if when I get to like 40, if I haven't achieved this or that, I'm gonna do something else. And then I realized like, no, like this is my lifetime. This is my choice. This is the way that I want to live life. And the only thing I'm married to is this.
My
Like,
art.
not my art, but
Mhm. The
like
only thing
being
I'm married to.
faithful to following what I love doing without putting an end date to it.
Can I ask you an honest question?
Hmm.
how do you balance, or maybe this is not even in your mix, how do you balance allowing, exploring all
Mm.
of this and the word focusing or finishing something?
Um, I guess there's things about my personality that just came
With
with
baggage.
how I was born. You
What are
know,
those?
I'm a nerd and I'm very disciplined. So
Discipline.
I'm very disciplined, and discipline doesn't have to look the way that everyone says that discipline should look like. Doesn't have to be like wake up at 5 a.m. every day. No, discipline, especially if you're like an independent artist or like a freelancer, like your discipline is gonna look very different to my dad's discipline,
How
who
does
has a
your
nine to
discipline
five.
look
My discipline looks
nowadays?
like, oof, um, it looks like prioritizing sleep because I tend to
Key.
not prioritize it. Um, Prioritizing health, nutrition, you know, that's important, like movement. And because I know I'm very responsible when there's an exterior thing that I have to do, if I have to be somewhere, if I have to achieve something before a meeting, I'm gonna do it because that's again this the part of me that I was born with is like I'm very, very responsible. Like I would never go to like school without having done everything. You know what I mean?
Like prioritizing, like delivering over taking care of your health, for example.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would fall into those patterns of like, yeah. So, um, I guess finishing things is like when you're working on a project for yourself, it's harder than when you have like you're shooting next day, you have to memorize. You're gonna sit down and memorize. You know what I mean? Because you have the exterior thing being like deadline, 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 right? But
Deadline.
when it's a project that it's yours, I think that's that's when you have to create your own discipline
Mhm.
and your own, yeah, your own guidelines of how you want things to be and be flexible because sometimes you need more money, so you have to grab some gigs
Mm.
and that's okay too because we gotta eat. Artists need to eat and
Okay.
sleep
So I
and
love
have
it.
fun.
So we stay open. We are always asking ourselves, what is the thing that I want? What brings me joy? And then we have the discipline. Some of us have had to work on that. So hooray for you to having that. And I love what you just said about finishing something. So taking something to completion. You're like,
I there's this trick
mhm.
that another great teacher,
Teachers, we
a
love them.
poetry, no, it was a narrative writing, creative writing class, and she said something like, if you're writing something big, let's say you're writing a novel, that's
Mhm.
gonna take, I mean, if it takes you a few months, good for you. It usually takes years. Um, just have something else that you're writing that is shorter, that you finish a poem. That's why I love writing poems too, because I can work on it for like a few weeks and then there's a point in which I let go, but it's something that is constantly there and I'm like thinking about it and going back into like in the subway or whatever, because I can have the sense of completion with something that's short. It's like having that hit of like, yes, I finished something today. I scratched that
Mhm.
off the list.
So
Because if
little
it's a
goals.
project that if it's an album and you're an independent artist and you have to raise the money, like do the production, so like there's a lot of like steps to it, then it's gonna take probably longer than you want it to take. Um, Probably, maybe not, but you gotta find ways of feeling like that reward of completing
Yes,
something.
dopamine release in your brain.
And it doesn't have to be the same art. It can be like, I'm gonna make spaghettis today. I'm gonna finish
I
them.
love it. Talking about that, what are your current priorities, Carmen? What are your current priorities?
Uh,
this week, this month,
Dominga
this
and her questions.
oh, oh
Um,
that's why I guess that's why we're here.
yes. Now in terms of work,
Yeah, sure, go for it. Can be anything.
I'm working on a project that I'm starting tomorrow. I'm shooting it
Mhm.
tomorrow, starting.
Is it
So
a play, a musical?
it's a movie.
Okay, movie.
Um, sort of coming of age. Um, and that's my priority right now. Like I'm studying that.
Okay, so movie is the priority.
Right now, I do have the ongoing project of my second album, and I have
Okay.
another project with a friend in Argentina that I want to happen. So
That's in like the seed shoot still. Okay, so I love it. So what the friend with the project with the friend in Argentina, is it theater, poetry, music?
it's music and it's in Spanish, and it's a
Music.
collaboration between the two of us.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't want
okay.
to like name or
Yeah, yeah.
like
No, we're not. We're not.
or
No worries. So we have those three
frame it because I
priorities
don't
in
know
the
yet.
work area. It's we got the movie that is starting up now. You got your ongoing project of this freaking second album. And would I be correct to assume that you don't have due dates for that? It's gonna finish when it's finished and published when it's published, or do you have any
Um,
tentative?
I'm gonna release it next year.
Okay, so we can be expecting new music from Carmen Borla 2024. Woo!
2024. Um, and personally, I think this
Yes.
is kind of interesting on what's a priority for me in my personal life,
Yeah.
setting up boundaries. That's
How do you
very
set up
important.
boundaries?
It's very hard for me. You're a person that always like, Carmen, boundaries are great, they're beautiful. And
What do I say to you?
boundaries are great, they're beautiful.
They're beautiful.
And I heard this thing, I read this thing that was like, when we set up boundaries, we're taking care of others as much as we're taking care of ourselves.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
And and I was like, yes. But because for me, again, this is another thing that I came with into this world is like, you tell me I have this problem, I have this thing. Sometimes I will devote more, like let's say we have 10
Energy?
centimeters, 10 centimeters of energy every day.
Mm.
I will devote 8 of those centimeters to you instead of like being like, okay, we can devote like 2, 3, because she's also an able person that has will and has like you're smart. It's you
So
can take care of
putting
yourself, like kind of
others,
like
the mother, the
the
mother.
yeah, like mother. It's like I gotta. It's also like you put the other person in a weird place if you're
Like,
trying to take care of them the whole time. You're saying maybe you're saying inside they can't do it by
yeah,
themselves.
exactly. We're not trusting them. Like, you got this. Like, I can help you a little bit, but I'm sure that you'll figure it out. Like what you said to yourself when you were doing the album, like you wouldn't even want to tell yourself anything because you want that Carmen to fuck it up and
Exactly.
figure it
Yeah,
out.
exactly. And it's like so.
Boundaries.
I'm working on boundaries, and
Hmm.
especially um for me, right?
Yeah,
Like
like mind.
yeah, because it's also like, why are you doing that? What are you being that nice with Dominga because of what? Like you can talk, you can help her,
Who is
but
she?
it's also where is it coming from? The need to solve
Hmm. The
her life.
why.
And it's hard
Why?
for me to ask for help. So it's that's why we have to set up boundaries.
Amiga,
And
I want to take the space. I've told you this already, but you can always reach out to me.
I know, but it's again, we're all humans and we're all working on things and
About the boundaries, I want to tell you
mhm,
something. I am a very expansive person. And let's take it to sensuality, and like we were talking about pleasure and joy.
mhm, mhm,
I think when we express, because sometimes we have the boundary, we feel it, and we just don't express it. Like we're not
mhm.
aware, or sometimes we're not even aware of it. Um, but when we take the bravery, the courage, the action to express the boundary, we are creating a safer space for yourself and for the others. I, as an expansive, loud, or whatever
Beautiful
person,
witch.
beautiful witchness, if I'm like, I'm a very, like, my language of love is physical touch, like affection, if I'm like touching you, blah, 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 and maybe that's not your language of love, and the person tells me, like, hey, I prefer you don't touch me. Like, thank you. Thank you. Because when I can trust you to express your boundaries, I
Mm-hmm.
feel safer to
Oh yeah.
express myself. Because if you don't express your boundaries, and let's say I touch you and I'm like giving you a hug and I feel the awkwardness, then what that might happen inside me is like, I don't know, maybe do I touch this person? Do I? And you don't feel safe. We don't feel safe to express ourselves. So bless the boundaries, express your boundaries. I love your boundaries. Thank you for working on boundaries. Such a conversation. Amiga, we can keep talking for hours and hours.
No.
I want to give some closure to this chapter. I'm going to bring you back because I
Mm-hmm.
want us to get more into like the insights of, like, the technical stuff, maybe of producing albums as independent, if you're apt to that.
Yeah.
But we were talking about priorities in your working, in your insight, in your spiritual. So putting those boundaries, I love it.
Setting up boundaries, very important. I'm working on it. I'm not great at it, but I'm working
I'm
on it.
working. I am putting my thing. I'm working on is putting boundaries to the comparison and the judgment. And it's
Oof.
sometimes it's like a voice. It's like a vibe. You can say something that maybe sounds quote unquote kind, but the vibe is judgy. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa.
I think
Can you
it's
try
also
it again?
like I think I like when I have that voice being like, you think you're good? Have you heard this other person? You like it's kind of like the best way that it works for me to reply to that voice is kind of like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, probably, but that's not gonna stop me from doing what I want to do. Kind
I
of like,
love
yeah, maybe you're right, probably right. You're probably 100% right, but I don't care. I'm
Thanks
gonna
for
do whatever
sharing
the fuck
it.
I want, you know? Like, okay,
Very
yeah,
powerful.
fine, you know?
Miss
So,
Carmen, I love it. We talked so many things in this chapter. We talk about where you start, where you are now, the projects you're working, the natural aspect that you have about taking discipline and playing and allowing, the importance of respecting each other, in all parts of life, but especially in artistic endeavors. We also talk about your very valuable tips of, like, mental health tools. You talked about therapy, you talk about free writing, you talk about connecting with your body, and you using yoga, and the importance of opening the door to joy and pleasure.
joy.
I am so grateful that you took your space, your artistry, goddessness, to share with the universe, your story. I feel there's so much I want to get deeper into it. So again, I repeat, I want you to come here again. Um, uh, I'm so excited for the album that's coming up. Carmen, can you please tell us where where can we find your work? Where can we listen to your music? And where can people find your merch? Because it's amazing. This is my purse, guys. This is Carmen Borla
That's me
merch.
holding the
I
moon.
love this. Thanks for creating this. I love it. It's part of the, I think it's part of the Words album merch. Am
Yeah,
I correct?
words.
I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
There's my wallet and my things. Like, I'm using this to go and ride in the park. You're coming with me,
Oh,
girl. So
I
where
love
can we
it.
find your work?
So just can search me as Carmen Borla on every single platform. I'm on all the
Mhm.
music platforms. I'm on YouTube. I gotta get more active there, but that's another thing. We can talk about social media forever. It's like we,
We'll
we
talk
have
about
like
it.
independent artists. We have to like
Mm.
there's so
Let's
much to
do
do.
audience, we're promising this with Miss Carmen. We're gonna sit up and talk about independence
Independent
artistry.
artist.
That's gonna be a whole new chapter. But
But
so YouTube,
yeah,
all social
at
media.
Carmen Borla, everything. I'm on
Mhm.
everything. That's my name. That's how you'll find me.
How
Reach out,
can
talk,
if
let me know.
anybody, so follow Carmen in Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube, whichever is your favorite music platform. If somebody wants to work with you, send you a love letter, where should they reach you through?
Love letter, I'll die. um, I
Please
guess
live.
you can talk to me on Instagram.
DM.
DM, that's the word.
We
DM
are
me.
gonna link all of this down in the description box. What about the merch? Where can people
I've
get the
been
merch I got?
I've been selling it at shows, but I
So go
will
live.
I will set up. Come see my shows. They're so fun.
Come see. When is your next show coming up?
Well, now I'm working on
Do you have a
two
new date?
projects, acting projects until the end of October, and then November we'll be back with the band, with shows.
So
When
check.
we're not
Uh-huh.
performing, we're working anyway. We're like
We're doing
creating
the
things
other.
in the studio. Yeah, 'cause sometimes you gotta balance, right?
If you want to learn about Carmen Borla's next live show, go to her Instagram.
Yeah,
That's when it's going to be published, probably coming to you, New York City in
in New York
November.
City,
So
probably in
make sure to
Argentina,
follow
end
her
of the
there.
year.
Thank you so much, amiga, again for being here. I am so grateful for every one of your teachers, all the people that
I
was
know.
mentioned through this story. Probably there's more that we didn't even got to talk about. If you have any more questions for Carmen and her journey, please let us know, write in the comments below, or you can directly DM her to her Instagram.
Yeah.
I hope you got some value of this nice story and getting to learn a little bit deeper about this very unique artist, Carmen Borla. Go listen to her music, go check her show live, and keep supporting artists. And of course, keep taking care of yourself.
Mm,
Have a good one.
I love you, Doms.
I love you.